you went under the wheels.
Perfected.
Welcome to Under the Wheels. I'm Matthew.
And I'm Gabe.
And in today's episode, we are going back to Pandora and getting all wet while we do it. Yeah, Avatar, The Way of Water. Sounds like talk about like odd Na'vi sexual acts. Ah, yes, Natiri. Now we are going to try The Way of Water. Yes, Jake Sully. Yes, we are. So, Avatar, The Way of Water. Let's talk about it. What do you want to talk about?
Man, I mean, there's a lot to talk about because it's James Cameron's first movie in like 13 years.
13 years, 14. I keep just rounding it up to 14 years.
It's the first movie he's done since the Obama inauguration. Let me be clear.
We are going to Pandora.
I think the Blue Cat people are very hot. I will not be drone striking their children.
Okay, let's start here. What's your relationship with the Avatar movie and franchise in general? The greater Avatar, whatever thing.
So I, like many people, watched Avatar in 2009 in 3D and thought, wow, the 3D is really cool, but the movie is kind of meh. It's like it was just like a really well done cartoon, basically. It was like a 30-minute Cartoon Network show stretched over 2.5 hours with some really awesome computer graphics and 3D tech that was really spectacular. And then I, like just about everybody else, immediately forgot the movie existed after about 6 months. And then a few years later, like James Cameron kept talking about, I want to make like 6 more of these. And he kept saying that and nothing ever materialized. So then for me, Avatar 2 turned into this running joke. Like, it's like, oh boy, I can't wait to, read The Winds of Winter and play Star Citizen and watch Avatar 2. Except now we actually have Avatar 2.
It beat out Cyberpunk 2049, just barely beat it out. The other...
You mean Blade Runner?
The other, oh, no. Well, Cyberpunk 2070.
Oh, yeah, 2077, yeah. The other game that, just seemed like it was never going to be released. Yeah. Or, Shenmue 3.
Which also got released.
Got released only due to heavy amounts of crowdfunding.
Yes.
But yeah, Avatar is like a thing that I don't give two shits about. James Cameron is a man who I find kind of interesting because he is really at the bleeding edge of American blockbuster cinema, which is it's kind of like being at the bleeding edge of fast food chicken nuggets. Whoever
He's the fast casual of blockbusters.
No. It's like whoever's there is going to be really rich, really smart, and introduce some really cool ideas. But the thing he's improving on is the most bland shit ever. There's a reason I said bleeding edge of fast food chicken nuggets, specifically.
Right.
Because it's the American blockbuster is basically an abyss of garbage at this point. So being on the bleeding edge of that is really not much to be proud of, other than it can make you fabulously rich. But that said, I mean, James Cameron is a good filmmaker who happens to make a lot of all right movies. And he's also just an interesting dude because he's very obsessive. He's clearly very smart. He's also doesn't give two shits about anyone or anything. So it's always refreshing to hear him in an interview just crap on everyone in Hollywood.
Which he's earned the right.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Someone was asking him about Thanos, and he's they're saying it's Avatar really changed the game in terms of facial motion capture and stuff. What do you think of the technology and how far it's come with things like Thanos? And he's like, Thanos sucked. It was really bad. It looked like shit. Avatar 2 is going to be way better. Like, that was his answer to the question, basically. And I'm like, good for you, James Cameron, honestly.
I mean,
like, does not care one bit. He's like, fuck it. It was stupid. Mine is better than theirs. Suck my dick. End of story. But yeah, so it's like, James Cameron I find more interesting than the stuff that he makes a lot of the time. Because it's like I said, Avatar, don't care. Forgot the movie existed. Titanic, boring as hell. Terminator 1 is a good movie, but it's very hard to sit through now because a lot of the effects are so janky. Terminator 2, excellent blockbuster, which, again, it's like saying these are the best chicken tendies I've ever had, but still, excellent blockbuster movie.
Wait, you're talking about Terminator 2?
Yeah, Terminator 2.
Okay.
Everything else, I can take it or leave it.
Okay. You're not a fan of True Lies?
I haven't seen True Lies, actually.
Hey, man, Tom Arnold. He was one of the heavyweights in that movie.
Oh, I mean, in more ways than one.
Oh, God. All right, so fair enough. I mean, I would push back against a couple of those things.
But I would hope you would.
Yeah. You know what's funny is, like, I really liked Avatar, and then I saw it in IMAX 3D, and it, like, completely blew my mind. And then I saw it recently, the original in 3D, and I'm a fan. I bought the extended cut. I've watched the extended cut. Yes, it's significantly better than the theatrical cut. I don't actually like the theatrical cut that much.
Okay, someone who hasn't seen the extended cut, can you elaborate a little bit as to what you like about it?
The reasons why.
Yeah. And what what else is in it?
Yeah, so, like, the first thing that's in it is you get to see Earth. So the movie opens with Jake Sully crossing the street in his wheelchair, and it spends a good 10 minutes kind of showing what it's like on Earth. And on Earth, it basically looks like cyberpunk. It looks like Blade Runner, but with more lights and more little, like, holographic images and stuff. So it kind of sets up... And, okay, so let me also preface this by saying that I think Avatar is the quintessential textbook movie, or like the movie that you would watch in school and then you can write a report on because it hits all of the notes you need to hit and it doesn't do anything different. You know exactly where the story is going. It's going to hit all of the same points. And it has I actually like the main character. I know a lot of people don't like Jake Sully, but I like him for a very particular reason. So and it's not because Sam Worthington has a terrible American accent, although that's up there. Yeah, sure. Okay. All right. New Zealander Sam Worthington. Where did you go? But it starts off on Earth so that when you finally see, like, the amazing, beautiful nature of Pandora, it's like a breath of fresh air. You get a bit more time establishing that Jake Sully's like a real idiot and a real moron, which you kind of need. It takes a little bit more time to show how affected Jake was by his brother's death and how, like, meaningless it all is, which then helps to get, when the movie starts going, it starts getting things going there. Because you spend more time with him in his wheelchair, when he first wiggles his toes as the Avatar, at least I felt it. I felt like, oh my God, this is the first time he's wiggled his toes probably in like 5-10 years. So then that whole sequence takes on, it's like a lot more powerful. They expand a couple of other plot points. So one of them is there's a storyline about how Grace Augustine, played by Sigourney Weaver, established a school for kids. And then one day, and Neytiri's sister was part of that school, but she fell in with a bad crowd. They would do raids on like the bad human establishments and, like, you know, shoot them with arrows and stuff. And one time the soldiers came to them and gunned Neytiri's sister down right in front of Grace Augustine. So it established a bit more relationship there. It takes a little bit more time the best part of the movie is sort of the world building, and so it takes a little bit more time building that world, building that sense of place. Like when they go, I understand that you probably don't remember the plot of the movie at all, but there's a moment where
I've seen Star Wars. I know what the plot of Avatar is.
I've seen Star Wars and Pocahontas and
I've seen an American movie before. I know what Avatar's about.
So they have that moment where it's like Jake's between like ratting out to the like the military people, and they have more scenes where he's like ratting out to the military people, and then Grace Augustine takes him up into the what some people think is a cool name and I think is corny, the Hallelujah Mountains that are floating. I'm like, it's a little corny. But they take him up there.
I mean, there's much cornier names of things in the Avatar world.
That's yeah. I mean, I it's a little too on the nose for me. Like, okay, we get it.
Oh,
just go ahead and play the song.
It's there. There's that's not even the fifth most on the nose thing.
Unobtainium.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, unobtainium, which they never explain in the movie or in the extended cut, but unobtainium is the reason why the mountains float. So now we know why people want it.
I was going to say, yeah, the best part about unobtainium, in at least the theatrical version, is no one explains what it is, what it does, or why it's important, or why it's even rare. It's just like, guys, unobtainium, we got to obtain it, but it's unobtainable because it's unobtainium. And it's like, all right, anyway, blue cat people, they good or bad?
They should have called it the MacGuffinanium. But yeah, so like remember, like the whole plot of it is that they want to like all the humans want to do is destroy a tree. Like that's the big conflict.
Yeah, because the mound of unobtainium ore is underneath the tree.
Right. So it's underneath Home Tree, which is where all the Na'vi live. But yeah, so they have a lot of extra plot lines in the extended. It's only like 16 minutes of footage, but it helps to flesh out that section. And then there's no one ever
it's like the whole thing is the real estate developers want to get rid of the rec center so they can build luxury condos, but the kids have to save it with a snowboarding competition.
But instead of just like a regular
dance
snowboarding
contest, whatever 80s movie we're talking about.
A snowboarding contest where they have to shove the snowboards into the skulls of the real estate developers.
I mean, that's the ideal way to do it.
I mean, if you're going to use a snowboard, why not use it as a weapon? Skate or die. Skate or die. Or board or die. So the other thing was like there was a character played by Laz Alonso who I like to call the Cocoam character, because Neytiri is like betrothed to him. And apparently at some point in the movie, Jake Sully and Cocoam become best friends. It's a little bit better in the extended cut, but he also gets a death scene when he actually dies. They like Jake goes to him, he's like, "Oh brother, I see you. Like this is an important death. We're supposed to feel it." And I'm like, No, we don't. We don't feel this. This is no, James. I see what you're trying to do there.
It's
Mr.
funny
Cameron.
how all the Na'vi have seen Titanic, which is why they're always saying "I see you" as a reference to Titanic.
Oh, is that a reference to Titanic?
Technically, no. It's just a thing James Cameron reuses across movies. But
he's like,
it is
I know
in
what
Titanic.
themes are. I see you. I see you. That's my thing. It's like the eye in the Terminator. He's like, John, I see you.
We got water. We got "I see you." It's basically James Cameron in a nutshell.
Pretty much. Yeah.
And mech
That's
suits.
like basically.
Yeah, I forgot. James Cameron also directed Aliens. That movie rules.
Yeah, he did do Aliens. He also did The Abyss, which was, oh god,
A movie
The
for
Abyss.
sure that exists.
It
It is 100% a real movie that was made and that people have seen.
All right, before we get into Avatar 2, like just quickly, James Cameron has like this like desire to sneak female nipples into movies that are PG-13 rated. Like it's kind of like The Abyss, Titanic, Avatar and Avatar 2, like, it's like, okay, is it because it's a 3-hour runtime and it's just like nude female nipple? Like, I get it, James. Like, good for you, man. Release the nipple. I gotcha. Like, you were ahead of the curve here. You were doing this in 1988. Fair enough. But it is kind of odd. It's like, maybe that's just progress. He's just like the lack of progress of releasing the nipple. I don't know. It's like a Canadian thing or something. Anyway. Yeah, and then the last thing is I've been to the Pandora World at Disney, and they got a ride that's pretty cool there, where it's basically a motion simulator, but the motion simulator breathes, which is kind of cool.
That's what people have told me about that thing.
And by people, you mean me?
And other people.
Oh. A lot of people I know were... one of the running jokes was, oh man, Flight of Passage, the Avatar ride, is better than the Avatar movies, which I'm kind of like... I agreed with when I first wrote it, and then I rewatched Avatar, and I was like, Jake Sully's a moron. This is awesome. Anyway... So yeah, I'm a fan of Avatar. I like it. I like the movie, even though, yes, it is much more style over substance. I would consider myself a fan. So, Gabe, do you want to do you want to go into ratings, or do you want to tell me the plot of Avatar: The Way of Water?
Oh boy, Avatar 2: The Way of Water. It is about our favorite like middlebrow action hero, Sam Worthington. He's back from 10 years in Hollywood hell to finally be a leading man once again, this time as a blue cat creature. So like a decade has passed, no, like 20 years have passed or something since the events of the first movie.
I'm going to say 14 years have passed since the events of the first movie.
Anyway, Jake Sully's got kids with Zoe Saldana's character. And then Neytiri. And then they've adopted another like half human, half Na'vi critter who's played by Sigourney Weaver, but she's a teenager because she was born from Sigourney Weaver's Avatar and the Erd Tree.
Yeah, Sigourney Weaver teen, I call her, or Sigourney Weaver cat.
Yeah. And then there's also Stephen Lang's secret son is there somehow, even though, there's no indication that Stephen Lang has like ever used his dick for anything other than like pissing on Na'vi in the first movie. Because that's just kind of how he's written. He's like a completely asexual person. Apparently not. He's got a son.
The only thing he uses his dick for is lifting weights and chewing bubble gum. And he's all out of bubble gum, guys. Anyway. Yeah, Stephen Lang's back.
Well, no, he's got a son. And then he's also back.
Yes, I'm sorry.
So yeah, Stephen Lang and a bunch of other dead people from the first movie, dead Marines, are back as avatars, where they downloaded their consciousness into a computer, and then that was then downloaded into an avatar body. So they run around the planet of Pandora now as like a special ops unit of evil avatar people.
Right.
Anyway.
They're the blue berets, if you want to be technical. Anyway,
yeah, so things are pretty chill for a while, and then the humans come back to Pandora with a vengeance. They like burn half the planet to ashes, parking their cars, and then set up shop to be evil generally. And Jake Sully is like the leader of a terrorist group, which is super badass. And like he fucks with the human invaders, blowing up trains and stealing shit. And then Stephen Lang and his crew of Avatar, mercs, are brought in to track down Jake Sully. And Jake Sully's like, oh no, Stephen Lang is back somehow. and it's not safe for me to be leader of the resistance. We're putting like everyone in the Hallelujah Mountains in danger. So he's like, okay, they're just after me and not necessarily as the leader of the resistance and not necessarily anyone else. So I'm going to take my family and we're going to run. So they go on the run and end up in these like this chain of islands so that James Cameron can be around water again. And they end up living with a tribe of like reef dwelling Na'vi people who are all like kind of greener. They're like a bluish green color instead of just blue.
Yeah, I call them teal.
Yeah, and then they got like really thick forearms and kind of like webbed hands and stuff for swimming, which is cool. It's a
They look
cool
like
touch.
Popeye.
And they have like inter-Na'vi racism and shit, which is kind of wild. But anyway,
Making fun of tails and stuff. Oh, his tail's not thick, and it's like it's about the length, not the girth, guys. Length, not girth. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
and so they're hiding with the reef people, and there's friction, and there's a lot of like Disney Channel teen comedy shit that goes on as like the kids have various misadventures trying to assimilate into their new surroundings. And then eventually Stephen Lang reunites with his son, who is like on the side of the Na'vi and hates him. But his son, and his band of goons like eventually make their way to the coast, and they figure that like, okay, Jake Sully's probably somewhere out in the water. So they team up with probably the most evil people on the planet of Pandora, New Zealanders, to go and hunt down Jake Sully and generally wreak havoc and be evil. And it all comes to a head, and there's a big old fight, and it's pretty cool. And that's the movie.
Wow, very good, very good. So, what do you give rating wise? What do you give Avatar?
It's a witness.
Way of Water. It's a witness. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's a witness. So what works? What works for you and what doesn't work for you?
Obviously, the CGI looks really cool. It's probably
Did you see it in 3D?
I did.
Did you see it in IMAX 3D?
I did not.
Did you see it in high frame rate 3D?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Probably not. Right. It looks really good, considering that probably everything in the movie is digital. It looks fantastic. The CGI is seamless. James Cameron still knows how to direct big action sequences, big bombastic action sequences really, really well. Like this has the best, large scale explosion heavy action in a movie I've seen all year by far. So, one thing I really like is that the bad guys are extremely hateable. Like it's refreshing how easy it is to hate them in this movie, because it's it's so hip these days to make the villains like, oh well, like he kind of has a point or something. But in this, it's just like the bad guys barely, like, not only are the bad guys bad because they're opposed to our heroes, but they also have no clear motivations other than just being evil jerks to everybody. And then on top of that, on top of being like completely irredeemable from a moral perspective, they're also like a bunch of loud, dumb, like gross, obnoxious, just generally not likable weirdos.
Right. I mean, like, Stephen Lang is likable in the sense that Stephen Lang is a great actor, but yeah, his Miles Quaritch is very much the cartoon character that he now encompasses as a completely 3D CG character.
Oh yeah, and then like all his I almost said his bannermen, his squad of mercs, they're all like just drooling idiots who just shout like gibberish all the time. Like they have no real dialogue or feelings or like they're complete NPCs. Basically, they just go like the whole movie, and that's it.
Yeah. Their default line is "hoorah,
hoorah." And, there's the joke about like, oh, like every division of the military has its stereotype, And like the joke about the Marines, like, oh, they're so stupid, they eat crayons, yada 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 yada. Like, I've met a lot of wonderful Marines, but the Marines in this movie definitely eat crayons, like 100%. And then there's the whalers who are just as evil and bad as Quaritch's crew, but they're also like the main whaling dude he's loud, stupid, fat. He's like got this greasy shirt from spilling shit on it all the time. He's all like dirty, looks like he's never showered in his life. Everything he says is like something an annoying, stupid person would say. So it's like when the big battle happens and all of the villains get just torn to shreds and brutally killed, I felt absolutely nothing for them. I was cheering the whole time because it's just the movie really stacks the deck against them, and I appreciate that. I really appreciate making it so easy to hate the bad guys.
Yeah, I'll say one thing. So it's a little minor spoiler, but one of the characters gets like trapped between a cord and like a hard place. And when that cord snaps and like the ensuing chaos, even though it's clearly a digital shot, I was like actively, I was cringing because I was like, oh, but also I was very satisfied because it was a very that James Cameron delivered on the promise. So we can say a lot about James Cameron, but he knows how to, well, generally speaking, he knows how to deliver when he needs to.
Well, it's like,
and I say generally speaking,
he really knows how to deliver within action sequences.
Yes.
Because like the mini plots that make up an action sequence where they all have like little setups and payoffs, he'll introduce an idea and then it comes back around, but with a twist. He does that better than like with the actual movie. Like he does it better in an action sequence isolated to itself than he does in the macro of the whole movie.
Right.
So it's like, there's a bit about like, so there's these whalers, right? The whales that they hunt are like kind of spirit cousins of the Na'vi. And they go into great detail about how they hunt these animals down, why, but especially the method. And then there's a later action scene where one of the whales comes to rescue one of our heroes, and all of the stuff that they went to great detail to explain about the hunting process gets turned on its head in a series of very satisfying, twisty sort of ways. And it's like those miniature story arcs are what make great blockbuster action, and James Cameron is he executes them pretty flawlessly.
Occam's, or not Occam's razor, Chekhov's grenade launcher.
Don't say it.
It's James Cameron. We have to make it bigger and better. That's one thing. If I had to define James Cameron by one thing, by two words, bigger and better. Hey, what's a good chase scene? Oh, okay, cool. But in Terminator, I'm going to make it bigger and better because it's going to be a giant fucking truck and it's going to be in the middle of the canals, like the LA waterway. Fuck yeah! Like, oh, okay. Didn't they film Grease here? All right, I guess we're gonna go here, James. So like, yeah. I would actually this is going to be weird. Like, speaking of Terminator 2 and the main problem everyone has with this movie, which is pacing. I would say James Cameron's gotten better with his pacing because watching Terminator 2, by the time they get to like the refinery, I'm exhausted. And I understand that that's a reflection of the characters, but I'm also like, could this be sped up a little bit? Like,
well, how long is Terminator 2 though? It's not 3 hours.
2.5 hours.
Well, that's long, but it's not insane. 3 hours, 3 hours and 10 minutes. That's insane.
Yes, it is.
Because there's a lot of goofy ass shit in this movie that doesn't need to be there.
So let's talk about the pacing quickly, because a lot of people, I remember when the movie started, I was like, all right, I'm here for it. I'm enjoying it. They're in the forest. This is great. And then they get to the water, and like, I think the water is where I think on first viewing, the water section is where you want to cut the most stuff out, because the movie just kind of slows way. Like, it's like the first part's at a good, all right, yeah, we're traveling down the highway at 85 miles an hour, and then, oh, okay, let's reduce it down to 25 miles an hour, and it's like, oh, it's too far. It's too far. Terminator 2. I need to check what the runtime is because I remember Terminator 2. 130. So 2 hours 17 minutes.
It's not so bad.
It's not, but man, but you have 3 huge action scenes back to back to back. By the time that hits, I'm just
that's more the Man of Steel problem, though.
Yeah.
This is issues in that
movie doesn't really have.
It's too long. Like a lot of the, Ned's declassified Reef survival guide shit doesn't really need to be there. Because it sometimes works, but a lot of the time I found the stuff between all the teenagers to be pretty uninteresting and oftentimes quite stupid and distractingly so.
Right. So I hated the kids. And so when I realized that the movie was about the kids, I was I'm fine with Sigourney Weaver cat because it's Sigourney Weaver. Like, okay, that's fine. But like his 2 dumb idiot fucking kids, I was like,
Spider.
Man. Like, Spider was okay because he was with the other Na'vi, so I was like, all right, that's fine. He's out of the picture. Like, the less Mowgli, the better. That's how it's always been. Less Mowgli equals better movie. But I mean, like, if we're going to say that the Avatar movies are all very derivative and cliche and pack no surprises, I'm going to use references that he is clearly pulled from. This is my version of Mowgli. But like,
it's like there's a scene early on where, before everything goes to shit and the movie really starts, it's still introducing all the characters, and Spider and Kiri, who's the young Sigourney Weaver character, and one of Jake Sully's sons are at like the human home base, and they're all having like some angsty teenage conversation about parentage and stuff. And I'm like, everything about this scene stinks. Like, the acting stinks, the dialogue stinks, the camera angles they pick, and the lighting is all weird. It feels like I'm watching a sitcom. I don't like it. And then as soon as they leave, it goes back outside to, like, this lush, gorgeous forest. I'm like, oh, okay, this is better.
Oh, yes. We're good here. Yeah, I mean, that's... Yeah, I have a note here, and it just says the stupid kids. Because that's my main problem. Like, I hated his youngest son because his youngest son was just such a bad. Obviously, this is cliched movie, the cliched movie cliche. But like, he's just like, ugh, Dad never wants me to do anything, so I'm going to be the wild child and go all over the place and be crazy and cause all of the problems. And it's like, Avatar 1 is fun because Jake being stupid is funny and leads to very entertaining set pieces. Annoying kid who's petulant and is just like, I'm not, like, I'm better than the rest of you is not fun. And, like, never learns it. And, like, that's the thing is, like, stupid petulant kid never learns his fucking lesson. Like, he's told throughout, like, every, say, 20 minutes in the movie, he's told, don't go there. Just stay put. 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 So you think the last time it's like, okay, maybe you have something where he finally does stay put, he learns his lesson, and then something good happens. But no, what does the fucking idiot kid do? He doesn't stay there. He goes and does something and then saves the day. And it's
but that's a very American movie cliche, because it's, you can't reward someone for passivity in a, ideologically speaking, it's like every movie ever where the misfit guy is told, don't do the thing, and he keeps doing the thing and it's bad. Instead of learning his lesson, the ending changes. He does the thing anyway, and it's good this time.
Right, but this is coming off of the time when he does the thing he's not supposed to do and gets people killed. And so it feels like this is a script problem. Like, the way that they have layered it is 100% a script problem. And so, like, not that the movie doesn't have script problems, but, like, it made it even worse, and it made him even stupider. And the fact that he gets rewarded for his stupidity made it even more, like, bafflingly annoying and obnoxious. Does that make sense? Like, do you feel where I'm coming from?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like,
Yeah, I know. Like script writing.
You're not gonna
101.
find. Well, it's just you're not gonna find any other movie that does what you're asking. Like they all do this arc instead.
Yeah, except for Top Gun Maverick, when Glenn Powell saves the day because he waited, and he followed fucking orders like John Miller said to do. I just mixed a lot of movies there, but yes, you are 100% correct. Again, the problem is in the setup, not in the payoff. Anyway, since I've derailed that, yes, the kids are stupid. We spend too much time with them in the middle of the movie, and they allude to a lot of things that like. So I don't have a problem with a lot of those moments. Like the moment where the kid gets to befriend the whale is like, oh, that's a nice moment. The when they're swimming below the sea because instantly they've learned how to hold their breath for like 20 minutes, even though it was just one day of training. It's like, okay, that's fine. The imagery is nice. It's beautiful. It's good. Like I like all of that stuff, but that's probably an overindulgence there. Probably made the movie feel a lot longer than it needed to actually be.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But I like those moments. Like I more so than a lot of the action scenes. I find those moments good. I actually think like a lot of people have a problem because the beginning is such a breakneck pace. But here's what I'm going to postulate to you, and then you can go off and talk about anything else. I think that he had the beginning be as long as he had it because he's assuming, he being James Cameron, is assuming people are not watching the original Avatar before going in to watch Avatar 2. Even though they re-released the movie in theaters and it's been available on DVD and it's cheap to buy and it's easy to watch on Disney Plus, he's assuming people haven't seen it, so he has to reestablish the entire world.
Well,
because
they don't
of that,
really even reestablish the entire world. They're establishing the new world that is, the 15 years later world.
So I guess yes, but also the culture, the feel of Pandora. I feel like he has to establish all of that, and he just takes a long time to do it so that people are comfortable. Does that make sense?
Yes, but
because
it makes sense, but I don't actually think that's what he did. Like it would make sense if that's what he did, but I don't think that is what he did.
Okay, what do you think he did?
Well, it's more just okay, 15 years have gone by. Here's everything that's happened in the last 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because he doesn't talk about we all have everyone's got a nervous system that connects to AWA, which is the network of I guess nervous systems, everything on Pandora. Right. It's just he just assumes you know it. He assumes oh, remember the floating mountains? You know what those are. Anyway, it's what he's everything that they go over in that opening is Jake Sully's like, boy, it's been a long time since I last saw you guys. Here's what's happened in the meantime. I have 3 kids. Their names are this, this, and this. Also, there's this other thing, and there's this other thing. Here's a bunch of people you don't know. It turns out Quaritch wasn't asexual after all. Yada, 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 yada. And so on and so on and so forth. And then the humans came back, and that's where our movie begins. And it's it's all new. He doesn't really go over any details establishing the world that were already in Avatar 1. If they are reestablished in any sense, it is only incidental, I think. In that, in establishing something else that's specific to this movie, it also reminds you hey, remember this thing from the last movie still applies or whatever.
Fair enough. Because I'm thinking back to it and I'm like, yeah, I guess. I don't know. It just felt like it was such a long intro. And I wonder if maybe they tried to make it faster because they wanted that first act section. They felt like it was lingering too long, especially since in the second act they have to introduce all of the water things. Mm-hmm. Which then it becomes like a copy paste of the original Avatar, but with water instead of learning your body, and with a couple of subversions the girl's actually into the kids, and not acting all pissy about them. And so if you were going to cut anywhere in the movie, what would you do differently, or what would you take out?
most of the scenes that are just the kids, I would remove.
Yeah. Like that's the main. Okay, if I had one huge problem with this, like one root problem, there are too many fucking characters in this movie.
Yeah, that too. I would think I would also probably take out some of the whaler stuff, just because it or condense it. And I think you could probably
I would
also
introduce it earlier.
Maybe. I mean, I would also probably condense the all of the introductory stuff where like Quaritch lands on Pandora again for the first time and he's being walked around, Blasted Heath City or whatever it's called. By General
Edie Falco.
Edie Falco.
Yeah, that's the other thing is like she disappears halfway through the movie. It's like, why couldn't you tell? I don't know. It feels like that.
The entire first half of the movie disappears halfway through the movie.
Yeah. It's like, all right, we're going to enjoy... You remember the Mountains of Pandora and the Forest of Pandora? We're going to do all of that, but from the point of view of people who hate that shit. So it's not nearly as enjoyable. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I remember when I was watching it, I was like, wow, we've got a really long section without seeing the dumbass bad guys. And then, 30 minutes later, we see them again. So, that is kind of weird. And it is weird that, I feel like that the main with the whalers story, if they were introduced a lot earlier in the story, then I feel like it wouldn't feel like they were just coming out of left field randomly.
Yeah, they do kind of come out of left field.
Yeah. Although one person said that the main whaler was kind of like a Captain Ahab type character, and I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool idea.
Not really. Like
a lazy Captain Ahab with a giant gut.
Not really, because he's not after one particular whale, and he hasn't lost any limbs yet. If anything, the whale is Captain Ahab, and he's Moby Dick.
Which is a fun subversion of the genre or of the story.
The whaling captain character is so funny because he just shows up. He's in like an unbuttoned Hawaiian shirt and the world's greasiest wife beater.
Yeah.
And he's yelling at Quaritch. He's like, "Who's commandeering my ship?" And Quaritch is like, "That'd be me, you weird sissy." And he's like, "Oi, mate. I don't have time to go hunt your fugitives. I'm busy. I gotta go kill innocent animals. That's what I do. I love killing innocent animals and then drilling into their brains and licking up the juice inside and then throwing their carcasses into the ocean. These are innocent animals I'm doing this to." And that's all he says. That's his entire dialogue for the whole movie. And then all that's and it's great because it's like, man, I cannot wait for this dude to get killed. It also doesn't help that he like screams and spits all his dialogue as well. So it's like, man, like not only is he evil, he's just generally unpleasant.
The best kind of evil.
Oh yeah, he's not like Mads Mikkelsen as Hannibal Lecter or something where it's like, oh, he's so evil, but he's also like kind of cool and refined. It's like, no, this guy's evil and he's just like a bum.
He's just straight up like a piece of he's just like literally a walking
human
piece
turd.
of shit.
Yeah. And then there's Jermaine Clement in there for no real reason. It's like, oh yes, these animals are actually very smart. They might even be smarter than us. It's like, I don't even know why you're here or why I need to know that.
Morally ambiguous marine biologist character.
He's like, oh yes, I preside over all this carnage, but I don't like it, and I'm an alcoholic because that's how I cope with the guilt. And I'm like, maybe you should just kill yourself instead.
Can you just, you know what would be better is if you just kind of walked your way out of the movie. No, I actually liked him because I was like, all right, this is like if Grace Augustine really did do everything just for the money, this is what you get. But yes, it was very odd seeing morally ambiguous character in movie that is all about right and wrong.
Yeah, well, it's also morally ambiguous alcoholic scientist man who is literally only there to explain things. Like he's there for like the worst part of world building, which is instead of showing you some cool aspect of the world, someone says, this thing is this thing, and it does this thing because this. Remember that. It'll be important later.
remember, we need the new unobtainium, which is okay. Here's another weird thing, is like the motive of the bad guys, right? So like the human motive, I guess James Cameron is like trying to be very explicit about like humans are European colonizers,
it's just colonial thinking in general.
Yeah, he's been pretty explicit about like they're supposed to be like the Europeans coming to Pocahontas's land.
Yeah, but I mean, you could extrapolate
to any colonizers,
any sort of, one group invades and tries to possess the land and resources of another group, yada yada yada.
Which like I kind of found funny because I was like, oh, but like, why would they just destroy Pandora and make it look like old Earth when they're like coming to this new land? And I kind of stopped and I was like, oh, wait a second. Yeah, that tracks. That tracks with most colonists. Ah, yes, we're going to this new land because they have all these great resources, and we needed a fresh new start by building things exactly the way that we've already been building them and polluting the land and the world. And I was like, you know what? That's actually a lot more. That's a lot more honest than I want to admit. So that was kind of a nice thing. But they're trying to build a new Earth, and then the whalers are trying to like get something that's not just like valuable, it's even more valuable than unobtainium.
They're extracting whale brain jizz, which is which they call
the
amrita.
Supplement that James Cameron takes every day. Whale brain jizz.
Exactly.
It's like, oh my god. But
which is called amrita, which is it's the Sanskrit word for like eternal life. Because it reduces it stops aging. You get
That's
it?
right. It stops aging. That's right. That's what you
guys get it.
Which get it?
And it's also the same magic substance from the Nio video games. So it's when he's like, yes, this is Amrita. It's the most valuable substance in the universe. This little bottle costs $1 bajillion. And I'm like, oh, Amrita. That's like that one Japanese video game that I played like
it's like
4 hours.
James Cameron, I see where you're stealing from. Now we got to go. That was the other thing. Oh my God. There's like the last fight scene is like Death Stranding, because Sam Porter Worthington has to basically use like a rope to fight off.
Oh
that
my
guy.
God.
Everything tracks back to Death Stranding, Gabe. All right. Anyway, yes, the movie is not subtle.
Oh hell no! But that's fine.
That's the thing is like,
I would probably like it less if it was subtle.
Yeah. I want to talk briefly, unless you have something you want to talk about specifically.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I want to talk about Kate Winslet, Cat.
Mm-hmm.
And how there was like, I felt like there was a lot of like build up and a lot of like, all right, this is the first time Kate Winslet's worked with James Cameron since Titanic. She held her breath for 7.5 minutes to beat Tom Cruise's record.
I wasn't aware of any of this stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, clearly you're not a fan of Avatar like I am, Gabe.
I wonder what could have given that away.
The only reason I know that it was Kate Winslet, Cat, is because she's got Kate Winslet's mole on her character.
No, it's just like I heard Kate Winslet was in the movie. So then at some point she shows up and I'm like, is that Kate Winslet? It's vaguely reminiscent of Kate Winslet. And then, it turned out to be her.
It turned out because she's got the Kate Winslet mole. I don't understand why the Na'vi have moles, but they do. Like, I don't understand why Neytiri all of a sudden has the same kind of like forehead scars that Zoe Saldana has, but I like it. I'm like, damn, this CG is amazing, which we'll talk about in a second. I was surprised at how irrelevant Kate Winslet's character was in the movie, except for the fact that her character was pregnant for some reason.
Yeah.
And that was incredibly empowering.
Like, in a movie where there's probably, like, if you isolated the audio, there's probably like 20 uninterrupted minutes of hissing. At least 25% of that is Kate Winslet.
I would agree with that. Yeah. one reason I like these movies is because the stories are so cliche that you can like basically chart it on a map, because then I don't have to like think about it. I can just sort of enjoy the main thing I came for. The thing I come to see the Avatar movies for, specifically in 3D, specifically in IMAX 3D, is for the sensation of it all. And I think it delivered on that really well. Like in a couple of different ways. You have your action scenes, which you talked about. Like he's a master at putting together these action scenes. You also have these like very nice sort of environmental scenes. And obviously probably the weakest stuff is like the character things. But I just want to kind of like put out like the thing I enjoy the most isn't sort of like the character dynamics. Although again, as I stated, the more of an idiot Jake Sully is, the better the movie is, because the movie wouldn't happen at all if Jake Sully wasn't a big dumb idiot. So the more stupid Sam Worthington is, including being like, we're a family, we stick together. Now you stand over there while I go this way and do other things. The better it is, even though he's just like cliche sitcom dad for a majority of the movie as well. Like cliche 90s sitcom dad, you know? So yeah, I'm not coming here for the amazing plot. And if you're coming to Avatar for the plot, I feel like you've made a wrong turn somewhere.
I can't imagine anyone would come to Avatar for the plot. If anyone has that you know, maybe have them talk to a psychiatrist.
Do you think it's bad, though, that they have a movie that is so by the numbers, but it's just really invested in pushing... Like, it's not, like, the worst story ever. It's filled with cliches. Executed, I would say, above average. But it's really just to kind of give a sense of
well, what
place.
did I say? What did I say at the beginning of this show? Bleeding edge of fast food chicken nuggets. That's what you're describing.
So let's actually, speaking of beginning of the show, unless you wanted to comment more on that.
No, go ahead.
So speaking of beginning of the show, James Cameron talked about like, you know, the advances that Marvel has made with Thanos, and he's like, I just think of Tango and Cash when Stallone puts on his glasses and he's like, Rambo was a pussy. I was just like looking at James Cameron, he's like, Thanos was a pussy. I thought Thanos' CG was pretty good, but like I feel like a lot more people were a lot more blown away by it than me. I always thought his face looked like kind of like a scrunched penis.
That's more the design than the effect.
That's true, but every time like he grimaced, I was like, hey, look, it's CGI. It's like weird CGI Josh Brolin. By the way, okay, brief tangent. The only line of Thanos's that I really like him's in Endgame when... So through a convoluted series of events, the main antagonist is Thanos before he gets the Infinity Stones. So Wanda Maximoff gets raised from the dead. Not important how. And she's like, you took everything from me and now I take everything from you. And he just looks at her, and in his best Josh Brolin, he's just like, lady, I don't even know who you are. And I'm like, this summarizes like everything about the movie in one sentence.
I've seen the first 90 minutes of Endgame, actually.
Oh, okay. Well,
so I'm not totally unfamiliar with what it is. I think I actually, I stopped watching. I can't remember. There's basically like a very clear midpoint, exactly 90 minutes into the movie. And that's
right.
The instant I stopped watching because I was tired and it was late.
I was tired, it was late, and to be honest, the last 90 minutes of the movie is basically just a shades of Dirty Diaper Brown. So, yeah. Marvel movies. But I actually, like, having watched Avatar, like, it's crazy how much the technology has evolved since the first movie, and like, and how much we're wowed by things that were pretty much only a couple steps away initially, versus sort of like the slightly bigger leap that Avatar: Way of Water took it. So, for example, like, yes, the way that Thanos looked was great, but he still looked like a CG creature. In high frame rate, in 3D, the Avatar, like the characters in Way of Water looked like solid masses. Now, part of that might have been because it's basically like a 3D movie.
Yeah.
3D movie.
Well,
it's basically CG movie.
It also probably helps that the high frame rate makes all the actual real people and objects look like CGI creations.
Yes. Yeah. It all looks like we're watching football. Apparently, he shot it at variable frame rate, so the action scenes were like at 60 to 120, and then when like Neytiri and Jake are talking about how they're shitty parents, it was like at 24 frames a second, which I'm like, that's actually that's a smart way to do it, but it still looks like that weird motion smoothing effect. But like, I'm a fan of high frame rate, you know, like I don't think every movie should be high frame rate, but you know, a handful of movies that are, you know, not bad. But basically what I'm saying is like, as great as the Marvel movies are at pushing CG forward, which they haven't really done lately, it feels like there were marginal steps. And then the stuff in Avatar, because it's so effortless looking, I think does a much better job. Avatar: Way of Water. And even the original Avatar, like the fact that so much of that movie looked as effortless as it did, like very simple things that you wouldn't think would be hard to do, is really impressive. Like, for example, in Way of Water, the dreadlock technology is fantastic.
Yeah.
Weird that it's on a bunch of white actors, but yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's
okay. I know. I was thinking about that the whole time. How Jake Sully's got dreads now.
Yeah, Jake Sully has dreads, and then like Kate Winslet puts on like this really heavy accent, and it's like, okay, I don't know. It's just it's weird. It's like, I understand a lot of the people who are like, odd signs of cultural appropriation, but you know what? Cliff Curtis is the main chief, which is excellent casting.
Yeah, well, it's also, I mean, I don't know, like, it gets all weird when you're talking about like cultural appropriation with like blue cat aliens, where it's like, you know, it's like, okay, it's not really cultural appropriation because it's all fake, but at the same time, like, why are the blue cat aliens' culture weirdly similar to certain Earth cultures? So yeah, I don't know. Whatever. It's kind of a moot. Like, it's like a pointless discussion. I think.
I mean, I think it was a little bit better in the first movie. Although I think people would say it's a little worse, but it was a little bit better in the first movie. In this movie, it feels very much like that's weird. Kate Winslet's character is not involved that much. Why not just cast like, I don't know, an actual like
blue cat
Maori person or something?
For Kate Winslet's character, because she had other commitments, so she'll be played by Mittens. She just meows the whole time.
It's like the only other real thing.
Speaking of like cat crap, the hissing really does not work in this movie, because like every time there's a tense scene and then one of the Na'vi hisses, it cuts all the tension completely, and I started laughing. Because they're like having this big stare down, and then they start hissing at each other, and I'm like, oh, this is too funny. I can't take it seriously anymore.
Where's their fur? Is it standing up on end? Are any of them shitting? Are they shitting now too?
They don't have fur, which is weird. I guess they're all like slimy or something.
Probably, yeah. Or like I feel like it's textured like a shark.
Oh,
like that's the kind of like feeling that I got. Like yeah. Yeah, I know I'm jumping all around here. I was surprised that the music was as good as it was. Even though a lot of it was just recycled music from the first movie, I'm still, you know, it's like, it was nice. It was nice.
I don't really remember any of the music.
I don't remember any of the new music, but like, you know, the main theme is like dun 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 dun. You know, it's like and they just play it over and over and over again. And then when something bad happens, it's like, that's the theme I remembered from the original one the most, because it was always like, it was so heavy-handed. It's like, wow, once again, not very subtle.
The way you sung that sounds like the Something Bad Is Happening music from The Mask of Zorro.
I wouldn't be surprised. They're both James Horner, I think. I wouldn't be surprised. Rest in peace, James Horner. You were awesome until, yeah. But like sound design, like I guess, yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think too much about the sound design. I'll be honest, man. About 2/3 of the way through the movie, I was just like starting to just lose steam. I was like, oh my god. can we wrap this up? And then like the last part takes place on a tanker, and I was like, wait, is this shit Metal Gear Solid 2 right now? What the fuck?
It's weird how at the end, like we're way past the spoiler point, but spoilers. So at the end, right, like the whalers, they're killing more whales to try and lure out the reef people because it's like they're killing their family basically. And then there's this confrontation between the whaling ship and all of the reef people, and there's like hostages, and the hostages keep changing because chaotic shit happens. But basically, the reef people attack the whaling ship, and you know, everything blows up, and there's an eclipse, so it's all dark, and then it's lit by the burning tanker, which is pretty cool. But like halfway through this battle, all of the reef tribe just disappears. They just vanish and leave Jake Sully and company to fight the rest of the bad guys by themselves. And I'm like, where the hell did these people go?
That's a good point.
They're just gone for like most of that final battle takes place after the eclipse, at which point all the reef people, I guess, have just gone home. They're like, all right, guys, mission accomplished. Let's go home and I don't know, whatever Na'vi do for fun, which is something, as much world building as there is in these two movies, that is never ever elaborated on.
Well, they go beyond the reef, like in Moana, obviously.
For fun, like idle entertainment at home, they go beyond the reef.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, like they don't read
Or, like,
books or anything. 'Cause I don't think you ever see a book. True. And they don't sit around the campfire telling stories because you don't ever see that either. They don't have toys because they don't show any toys.
That's true. Yeah.
So it's like, what the fuck do they do? Like, they don't have sports because they don't show any sports. It's like, how do they entertain themselves? Do they just sit there in like stone silence when there's not like plot shit to do?
I think they go out and find things to stick their hair into.
Find things to couple their like spinal cords with.
Pretty much. Or like they go to the reef of the ancients or whatever the fuck it was called and swim down and just like get high and connect with the home tree or whatever.
I'm going to connect my hair, spine, brain cord thing to this anemone without its consent.
I'm going to learn everything about my ancestors, even the shit they didn't want to see. Like, oh, that's not cool.
All the nasty shit they jerked off to that they thought died with them. No, it's been reabsorbed by AWA.
It's like, I didn't think you could do that with your little tail hair, your little hairdo, your hair knot. Oh my god! Why are you attaching it to that thing? That's a little. Yeah, it's funny because you're right. They do spend, again, that middle section is like an hour long of like world building, and the thing we understand is like they ride like water birds.
Yeah,
and
like you don't even know what they eat or like what the social functions are that anyone's fulfilling. It's like
because he's like the first movie, you knew they eat fruit.
He's like, make sure, like it's like the chief, Cliff Curtis.
Yeah,
Cliff Curtis. He's like, make sure you're not useless because that's the worst thing you can be. And then everything is just them like dicking around in the water, learning how to ride the like, you know, plesiosaurs or whatever they have there. And it's like what are they actually doing though? Are they like gathering food or what? And then there's like no leisure activities that anyone does. There's no like we eat, I don't know.
We
eat scallops. You got to get the scallops from under the rocks or something. No, there's none of that. There's like, oh, we need to weave some baskets. Can you collect seaweed so we can weave baskets with? No. Hey guys, we're gonna play a game of Na'vi ball. Nope. It's just like, I have no idea what these people do. I have no idea what their culture is. I just know that they're blue, and when they're sad they yell like
and then they get to be
like
racist
very
if you have
pre-Victorian.
pinkies.
Oh yeah, and they're very racist if you have pinkies. Yeah. Or if your tail isn't girthy enough.
Or if your forearms don't look like Popeyes.
They're literal sailor men. Maybe they eat spinach.
Maybe they do. Like that's how they get that color. They eat so much spinach that it's
turn
being
green.
green. Which is weird. Like you'd think. I think Cameron just fucked up by having him blue in the first movie because he's like, shit. It'd make more sense for the blue ones to be in the sea because if they dive down into the sea, they're harder to spot. But we made them blue in the first movie, so we need to make these guys turquoise. Shit.
You could have made them purple.
I guess, but I feel like turquoise is a good color because that's like whenever we see turquoise water, we're always like, ooh, that's the water I want to be in. That's the reef water. You know what I mean?
That's the sexy, expensive water.
That's the
That's the resort water.
I was like in Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. I'm like, wow, they really made these islands beautiful, and I'm like, oh, they just made that water look teal, and that's why it looks so good.
The teal water makes everything look cool.
It does. It's like okay, now we're in tropical island land. Got it. That's the one thing that they made sure to study and like get right is the color of the water.
Yeah,
it's true.
Because the water everywhere else, it's like gray. It's like yes, the icy North Sea gray. It's either that or just this deep, deep teal. It's like, oh, it's so tropical and nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you have like the gray water and it's like all desaturated and stuff, and you're like, this is why they say don't go into the water in Boston. Got it. It's all it's the color of the inside of their fish. Gross. Yeah. All right. So visual effects wise. Did I want to talk about visual effects? No. Do you want to talk about visual effects?
I don't know. What is there to say besides they look really good, and they're most of the movie.
That is. I mean, it's.
I found myself at many points wondering, like, when there was a strange camera angle or camera move, I'm like, was there actually a camera that they moved to do this, or is this just all on a computer? So it could have been anything they wanted, and they chose this for some reason.
I mean, they had a DP on the movie. I think what they did was they had, because I know in with the Hobbit movies, with the first Avatar movie, what they'll do is they will record everything in the volume, and then James Cameron will go into, like, he'll get a digital camera, he'll step onto the volume. Well, he'll get like a little apparatus that looks like a camera, and they'll make a bunch of settings in VR for that camera. So they'll set it to like 35 millimeter lens. Camera moves are going to be at this degree, so like moving 1 inch is the equivalent to moving like 5 feet, and then he'll go through and sweep through the scene and figure out where he wants to place the camera with all the elements in there. So I'm sure it's partly that. I know obviously it was shot in 3D, but like that's the equivalent of like making sure all of your scales are correct in your 3D program, and then making sure that when it's projected right. I don't know if, because he created I guess they would have had to, because they actually do have some scenes of like real people in motion. He created a camera rig where it's two cameras. One of them has a mirror that it shoots off of. The other one's a standard camera, and that's how they get the 3D effect. They have to make sure everything's adjusted correctly so that the image is correct. And I'm guessing they did that for a lot of the regular filming, the live action. And again, I haven't done enough research into it because normally I like to like read through the Wikipedia article to figure out exactly how they did it. But I'm wondering if they did motion capture and practical action at the same time on shots that had the real people like Spider and Edie Falco. I know I got way off track there. But basically, I'm pretty sure that the camera moves, aside from a couple that were set, most of like the action moves were a special rig that looked like a camera that he would move through 3D space, which is what gives it sort of like a handheld feel at times.
Speaking of handheld, there were a couple, like I said, James Cameron's great at action, does it really well. There were a couple like Michael Bay-isms in the movie that were really jarring. It was very rare that it happened, but there were a couple moments where there's kind of this sweeping camera move with something happening, and then it snap zooms onto whatever's in the middle of the frame. And I'm just My brain. Why'd you do that, James?
Oh, I hate those. Yeah, I hate those. Every single time it happened in the movie, I was like, oh, I didn't realize we were watching Battlestar Galactica from 2004. What the fuck? It's like the most digital of digital moves. Oh, you're right. I forgot about all of those. And they always do it the same way, where they'll be tracking it, and then they'll do the pop zoom, and then they'll cut to another shot, and then they'll cut back, and it'll be a zoom out, a pop zoom out, and it's like, you know what, man? No.
Yeah,
this.
it's just the snap zooms do not work
I hate
for
it.
me.
Yeah. I would have to watch the movie again, but one thing I noticed when I rewatched the first Avatar movie is like every single beat of action lasted 2 frames longer than most Hollywood action scenes do. And so I'm wondering if that also happened here, because James Cameron's one of the editors. I'm wondering if he's like, I feel like his style of shooting a movie hasn't really changed that much since like Titanic. And so I'm wondering if that's his sort of editing rhythm, where he wants it paced a little bit longer.
Yeah, it could be.
Like with each action scene. So I would be interested to rewatch it. It kind of slows down the action scenes a little bit, but in a way that I kind of like. So I'm not opposed to it. But I wonder about that. I also, when you watch the movie, were there a couple of like shots that looked like they stuttered a lot?
I don't think so.
There were a couple of shots when I was watching that it looked like a CG cutscene where the graphics card's having trouble processing, so you have like frame stutter. And I was like, wait a second, didn't this motherfucker spend $460 to make sure this shit didn't happen?
You mean $460 million?
It's $460 million. Like, I was like, wait a second, this is like the most expensive cutscene ever made, and like we still have like really bad frame jitter. Like, did someone not set their render settings correctly? Okay, so I'm wondering if it was just the projector I was watching it on just could not keep up and process, because it was usually in a scene that had a lot of visual information going on, like a lot of things blowing up while the camera is sweeping and a character is interacting with something.
It could be.
So,
yeah. The projector in the theater I saw it at, like, briefly shit itself at the beginning of the like when it was showing the production companies that made the movie, but it was fine after that. Did
the production company logos look like a lot smoother than normal, like almost fake looking?
I don't know.
Okay. All right. I had to do like a whole, with some of the people that I know, I had to do a whole like, this is motion enhancer, this is like 60 frames a second, this is not. Can you tell the difference? And a lot of them.
And that's just the AMC intro.
Yeah. No, I was doing it on a home TV. Because every now and then when I watch the Hobbit movies, I put motion enhancing on because I want to relive it. I want to relive the high frame rate.
Yeah, no, I meant using the AMC intro as like a way to discuss all these horrible visual abominations. So,
oh god.
I haven't. Avatar was the first movie I'd seen at a Regal in probably like 6 months, maybe even longer actually. So I had forgotten about their awful intro and had gotten used to the Nicole Kidman one from AMC, where it's like, man, like, did Disney do the special effects on this or what? Because that does not look like a person. And then, man, the Regal one, it's still so bad. It's still just people spamming movie quotes apropos of nothing with no context.
I could have been a contender.
Just yeah, with
here's like, looking at you, kid.
Does not make sense for the scene at all. They're just like, I could have been a contender. It's like, what? Where? How? You were buying a Coca-Cola at the movie theater. What fucking contention is there?
See, they need to do that, but not with like famous movie lines. They need to do that with like the Matthew version of that is doing it with obscure movie lines like.
Oh, have I ever told you?
Yeah, that's usually when people do fuck up.
Have I ever told you my pet sitcom character idea?
No.
It's a guy. So if I want to have a sitcom under my name, and I want there to be a side character who only speaks in movie quotes, but it's all like really innocuous, like meaningless quotes from those movies. And he'll say what the movie's from. So he'll be like, well, as Ryan Gosling said in Drive, want a toothpick? Like, just shit like that. As Joaquin Phoenix said, and You Were Never Really Here, I don't know what the fuck's going on. Like, that's his whole, that's the only thing he's capable of saying, is he will say, as so-and-so said in such and such movie, and then he will deliver, like, the most normal quote from that movie.
Yeah, I like it. I feel like that'd be really it'd be really hard and get really hard like really fast. You'd be like, oh fuck. Like I haven't like 90%
That's why it's got to be a side
lines,
character. He would only speak
90%,
like once per episode.
90% of the stuff that I say, like the movie quotes that I pull in school, are from Spartan.
Oh, I know. Boy, do I know that.
So like one thing that I say a lot is like, here's the cutoff, here it is. Because I have to, you're trying to like get everyone's attention. Here's the cutoff, here it is. I'm like, God damn it, I gotta stop using that one. The other one is like when people are like, hey, I was only trying to help. I'm like, yeah, well, that's usually when people do fuck up. Like, can't say that. Or they're like, I saw that sign, then you are truly blessed, sir. Can't say any of that shit.
Then you are truly blessed.
Fuck, that movie's so dumb and I love it so much. All right. Okay, so I do want to ask you, is there anything else you want to comment on the movie itself? I know I kind of scattershot and threw us off, so.
Not that I can really think of.
I will say this. Considering that Neytiri is basically the hero of the first movie, it's really sad to see her relegated to, like, barely in this one.
That's what happens when you have 12 new characters.
Oh, God. I know. It's like James Cameron didn't remember that Neytiri was the best character in the first movie. Oh, by the way, it was Stephen Lang's idea to crush the skull of Quaritch. I was like, oh, that's fun. So apparently, I do remember what I wanted to say. One thing, sorry. One thing that I realized when I was watching this was like, I feel like this is James Cameron's $460 million excuse to like get all of his buddies together and just like goof off. Because like Kate Winslet's barely in the movie, but she like broke a record and people were talking about her. Like, Sigourney Weaver's back, but she's playing a character who's like 15. So it's like, oh yeah, I'm a great actress. I can play a young person. And then when she talks, it's like, but you still sound like you're 67. Even though she tried to like up pitch her voice. So it's like, I feel like it's a lot of like, hey, and James Cameron's like, hey, we can have fun with stunts and like put people underwater and like cause them to die of, oxygen limitation because they have to hold their breath so long. So like, as I'm watching this, it's like a tale of two movies. One is like cutting edge technology and the other is like getting all of your friends together, even the ones you killed off in the last movie, to just like have a good time.
Yeah.
And like do some fun stuff. So that definitely like came together. To me, that was kind of like apparent in the movie as I was watching. Not like apparent as in like Jake Sully, but like, that's what I know.
Jesus Christ. You might as well be a parent making puns like that.
Oh, they're so bad. Always.
What do you think of Kiri's character and the whole, like, she's got some special connection to the planet thing where she can, like, psychically control the flora and fauna?
Good question.
And
really
how that's
liked
basically set up as, like, bait for future sequels.
Okay, so first half, because right before the I liked the idea of her, and I was kind of wondering if this would be the case, since they brought Sigourney Weaver back, where it was like, all right, so Sigourney Weaver's kid is going to have some sort of special connection because, Grace Augustine didn't survive the pass-through to get into her avatar body, but maybe like Awa absorbed that information, impregnated the dead body, and then you have Jesus baby. but instead of Jesus, it's Jesusa. I don't know. It's a female. I like that idea. I like all of that stuff. I wish that they had come to a complete arc for her in this movie, as opposed to like, oh, if she connects to Awa again, she's gonna die because she had a seizure. So I like the fact that she has special powers because it makes her character even more unique, and it helps to complement the idea of like you have this 67-year-old actress playing a 16-year-old. It's like, oh, like she can call back to being that young, but she also can have like the wisdom of being an older person. Now we can impart that on her, and it turns her into a unique character. I don't like that it was teased for a sequel. I feel like it should have come to completion.
The real question is it being teased for the sequel that made Stephen Lang cry in that clickbaity headline?
There was a clickbaity headline where Stephen Lang cried. I feel like Stephen Lang cries a lot. I feel like he's like, I feel like he's someone who's like very in touch with his emotions, which makes him such a good Quaritch, who's clearly not in touch with his emotions at all. Stephen Lang age, Stephen Lang old man. What the heck? Stephen Lang's in a movie called Old Man?
What?
And he's bald. All right, I got distracted. I feel like it would have been in probably in the sequel because the sequel's already shot. Like,
yeah,
he has
no.
all the footage
Just look up like Avatar 4 Stephen Lang or something, and there's some headline that was floating around that you could not get away from on the internet for like a week.
All right. Avatar 5 actor Stephen Lang says the script made him cry.
It's like Avatar 5. Like at that time, we hadn't even there was no discussion of an Avatar 2.
Oh, no. So what happened was after Avatar came out in about 2014, James Cameron was like, "Oh yes, I have Avatars 2, 3, 4, and 5."
No, I remember. That's why it was a running joke. Like, oh yeah, sure.
Right.
We'll have Avatar 6 in the year 3000 or something.
Yeah. Oh god. It's crazy that he has 3 shot because he wants to avoid the Stranger Things effect, as he calls it. It's crazy that he has it shot and it's still going to take 2 years to get all the post-production done.
It's crazy how instead of saying like, I did it to avoid having huge age gaps between each movie, he just insults another piece of media to illustrate his point. Because he's James Cameron.
And he can fucking do it.
And he can just, whatever someone else has made, he can just shit on it.
I think I'm hoping that there's like some sort of like nice closing moment that made him cry, and not that he lied saying it was so beautiful and was actually weeping because it was so pitiful, like the end of Game of Thrones.
I like the idea that he cried just because he's a really weepy dude. Like he just cries really easily. Probably not the case, but it would be really funny if that was.
I will say, all right, I know that like the character of Quaritch gets a lot of shit for being a cardboard cutout in the first movie, but like I love Quaritch in that first movie for a couple of reasons. One is his opening monologue when he's like, walking like a badass with his like fists clenched so hard that you can see every single vein in every single part of his arm. He has that moment where he's like, "My job is to protect you and keep you alive." And then he's just like, "I won't succeed. Not with every one of you." And I'm like, oh, dude, this guy's fucking real. That was a real statement.
I will not succeed. Not with every one of you. Yeah, he's cool. He's cool because he is such a cartoon supervillain.
I mean, like, pretty
like
much.
He's like someone out of Batman the Animated Series. Like a lot of those guys were not 3-dimensional, but they were fun.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's what makes him like, or like he's like, okay, here's another thing, right? In that first Avatar movie, they're burning down the home tree, and he's just like sipping on his cup of coffee, which apparently is like a big cliche in the movie. Like, if you're a bad leader in this company, you're like drinking, you're sipping coffee, to the extent that Edie Falco's little mechanical arm is the one that's giving her the coffee. which is
this
a great
giant robot arm gives her this comparatively tiny cup of coffee.
cup of coffee. Like the legit, like it would just be easier for her to hold it, but no, we got to do it the hard way, guys. But also like after.
Also, how does she get the thing to bring the coffee to her face without like reaching her hand through her self? You know, because like everything's out in front of her, given how the robots work.
Like the fact that she's so coordinated and so used to doing this that it's second nature for her is baffling. Like this is what she spends her time doing. It's like when people know how to like shuffle poker chips. Like that's what she spends her time doing on the government's dime.
That and practicing her combinations on the bag in the robot suit. Which was such a silly introduction. I cracked up in the theater.
I wonder if like when they shot that scene, it was like Stephen Lang, like normal body Stephen Lang in a goofy mocap suit, and her in her regular like army fatigues, and they were walking, and then later on they were like, oh shit, we can't do this. Like she needs to actually like he's in avatar form, so he's like 2, 3, he's like 8, 9 feet tall, and then they were like, all right, let's just put her in the digital suit, and then they put her in the digital suit, which by the way, all of the compositing they did of real people in the digital suits is a lot better. Like it's super good. It was so bad in the first movie, but it looks super good now.
I didn't notice in the first movie because I saw it 13 years ago.
There's one scene in particular where he's like talking to Jake. He's like, if you get me this intel, I'll get you your legs back, boy. How does that sound? And Jake's like, yeah, sure. And he's like in the suit and he does like a punch combination. But like because of the way they had it, they have like the After Effects motion blur on him, and so he's all like moving jankily, and then he turns around and he's like talking to him in it. But because it was just basically like a 2D image in like a 3D like uniform thing, it just looks really weird. They improved that technology a lot. So, yeah. Anyway, I'd be interested to read. Yeah. Like how much James... I mean, hey, look, people cried at the end. Maybe what happened was like Jake Sully's like holding on to a bed frame and Natiri's just like, Jake, I'll never let you go. And then like it just has written in there like Celine Dion music to make you cry. And then
just the penny whistle solo from My Heart.
And but like instead of a penny whistle solo from like My Heart Will Go On, it's like Jake's theme from Avatar with the penny whistle. That's what we were missing the whole time. James Horner blessed this moment here. He came down and finished the score. Okay. I have a different line of thought for you. How is this movie making so much money?
I don't know. I didn't see anyone in my theater was weirdly empty, and I saw it on opening night.
Really?
Yeah.
I would
say my theater was... I saw it opening night at a pretty popular movie theater at 7 p.m., and the theater was maybe 40% full, if that.
Really?
Yeah, it was shockingly not as well attended as I thought it would be.
The IMAX showings that we went to, we checked on Sunday and Saturday, and they were sold out, except for the very front row. But if you sit in the very front row and you look up, and the 3D glasses, everything gets desynchronized.
Your eyes will
so you can't do
melt and fall out of your head.
They have to like in order to project it, they have to use a little bit of the Ark of the Covenant. But of course, when you're that close,
I saw Star Wars, The Force Awakens, in like that what is like digital XD whatever crap that they have at Big Newport. In the front row, and man, it was just like wall-to-wall screen tearing. It was
oh god,
it was rough.
Oh yeah. Like IMAX screens are usually a little bit better, but I went and saw like for a while I was going to see movies in the second to front or front row, and I went and I saw Hugo in 3D, and I was like, man, Martin Scorsese really didn't get the technology right. Like all of these frames are completely desynced.
Oh.
And then years later, I was like, fuck, I messed up. I shouldn't have sat so close. So, my bad. My bad, Marty. Please reach out to us, video@underthewheels.com to, talk about it. I'd love to talk to you about it. Maybe
Marty,
get a free
is
3D
Avatar
screening.
also a theme park ride, or is it cinema?
Well, when you have a picture like this, I think he would say it's a theme park ride. I think it's a theme park ride.
It's totally a theme park ride. It's a good one. It's a great theme park ride.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like it's like riding Flight of Passage, but for 3 hours. But
it's gonna suck when Marty dies because he's like the last person who calls movies pictures.
Pictures, yeah. I think it was him and Scorsese who did the Fabelmans Q&A at the DGA.
Who and Scorsese?
Marty to do it again. Spielberg and Scorsese.
Oh,
so
okay.
when they do,
because it's like we were talking about Scorsese, and you're like, it was him and Scorsese. I was like,
oh, sorry.
Yeah, Martin and Scorsese
yeah.
together did the Q&A.
Well, okay, so
on the Fabelmans.
I mean, I also feel like James Cameron and Martin Scorsese are like casual acquaintances, because like they're a generation. James Cameron's a generation below Scorsese. He's like 20 years younger.
Yeah.
So like, and like you said, Cameron came out and he didn't want to make those personal, intimate films just with a bigger budget like Scorsese. He wanted to make big, bombastic movies.
Yep.
So like, I feel like they're like, you casually like handshaky, and like Martin Scorsese would be like, oh yeah, it's a great picture. If he did say it was anything more than that, I think it would just be because of the fact that Avatar takes moments to envelop you in its world, and it's not just like a one-liner every minute. But again, it's not really like it's pushing technology, it's pushing sort of some of that environmental detail stuff. It's got a very clear theme. I mean, and it doesn't feel like a factory product. It feels like a hand curated piece of movie making. So maybe that would be the edge I would give it.
It's funny when you said one-liner every minute. I just thought of Tony Stark saying "I got nothing" when Shane Black runs out of one-liners.
Oh, Shane Black. I'm still baffled that it's making money, and as much as it does, do you think it has more to do with
how much has
Disney?
It made?
It has made $609 million worldwide so far.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's been out for a week. It's been out for a little bit longer in London, but US and I think worldwide, it made less returns in China than they thought they were going to make, but fuck China.
Well, they're also having like a political crisis right now, so, and everyone's like dying of COVID over there again.
Oh, good. So no one's going to the theater.
Exactly.
Apparently it's got to make, so I would say it has to make, everyone's saying it has to make $2 billion to be profitable. It's got to make it's got to make $1 billion to be profitable. But I saw this tweet where people are like, why are we thinking that a movie that has made $650 million or $600 million at the box office, why do we feel like this is a box office failure? Like, what the hell is wrong with us?
Nope.
Like,
well, who actually thinks that?
I think a lot of people are like, oh, look at this. It's having trouble at the box office. It's only made $609 million.
Well, it's, I guess, proportionate to the investment.
I feel like a lot of the
maybe,
internet.
But
well, the other thing is that James Cameron movies usually have legs. Like, people won't see it. I'll be interested to see if the reduction, getting into like box office numbers, if the reduction is more than like, I would say 45%. Or I'll say 50%. If it's more than 50%, I might be nervous. If it's like 80%, I'll be very nervous. But if it's like 50 to 60%, I'll be like, well, that's still good. It's still going to hit $1 billion. So it'll be interesting to see that happen. It'll also be interesting to see if this stays in theaters stays in IMAX theaters for a little while. It'll also be interesting because Babylon comes out this weekend. I feel like Avatar is just going to kill Babylon on arrival. I feel like no one's going to go see Babylon.
Yeah. Well, I feel like no one's going to see most movies because people don't really go see movies that much anymore.
I'd be interested to see what happens on Christmas Day because that's usually like one of the busiest times. And again, if Avatar's wrapped up in IMAX 3D and people are done opening presents and all fast food places are closed and they need to eat food and they need to like do something because they hate their families. They need to go see a movie. I'll be interested to see what Avatar, because again, also Christmas Day is a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, that's true.
So that was one thing. And then the other thing I was just going to say was, as far as like blockbuster, who do you think is the best blockbuster director?
That's rough. I mean, I feel like...
So I can give you
I'll say
a couple of names.
old school Spielberg, new, like, more contemporary would have to be James Cameron.
Yeah, he kind of took the mantle from Spielberg, like I would say probably like somewhere in the 90s when Spielberg stopped kind of.
And I guess the reason I'm throwing out those two names is because like they're directors who consistently make blockbusters. Oh no, actually Nolan's probably swiped it from Cameron. Yeah, I think he has.
Yeah.
Because Nolan also consistently makes blockbusters. Like, the greatest blockbuster of all time is Mad Max Fury Road, but George Miller is not consistently making that type of movie. He's not a blockbuster director. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, like, I think that's basically the only blockbuster he's ever made. Because even prior action movies were pretty low budget by comparison. But yeah, I would say it's like best blockbuster directors, they all kind of have like a peak period and then sort of wane. So I would say Spielberg in the 80s, and then Cameron in the 90s towards the, like, you know, basically through Titanic, and you can kind of lump Avatar in there, but it's really Christopher Nolan from The Dark Knight onwards.
I don't know. I always have, I know that you and Austin give me shit about this, but like, yes, Nolan is a great blockbuster director. I completely forgot about him too when we were doing this. But man, his editing is so bad. Oh God.
Sometimes.
Like, I'm looking at Tenet. I'm looking at you. I would say that
my soft spot for Tenet just keeps growing as time goes by. Even though I like ranted about all the bad stuff in that movie on our podcast about it, like, as the years keep passing.
Have you watched it since then?
Yeah, I watched it once since then, and I like it grew in my esteem for sure.
My favorite line from John David Washington is when he's like, "So here's where my hot sauce is," and then gets into a big fight scene. I was like, yes, the protagonist has character. He likes hot sauce. There we go.
You want to crash a plane? Oh, not from the sky. Don't be so dramatic.
Yeah, who would do that, Christopher Nolan? Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. Because like, it's weird because I always think of Christopher Nolan not necessarily as like a blockbuster director. I always think of him as like this like cerebral genius.
Well, that's the thing. I think the culture wants to make him out to be a cerebral genius, but he is more appropriately a very good blockbuster director because that's what he makes, and he makes really interesting blockbusters. James Cameron,
I would say he's. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say James Cameron's great, but I don't think he's active enough. Number one, and number two, like, he makes these cool big movies, but they're not really very memorable anymore. Like, I don't remember Avatar the way I remember Terminator 2. And then, yeah, I mean, like, and the other thing too, it's like a lot of blockbusters are really just, they're like bland crap. Like I said earlier on this podcast, they're just an abyss of garbage. So it's really like today, you know, you have, okay, James Cameron made his one movie of the decade, so we got that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Christopher Nolan, who's a consistently like good blockbuster maker. Chris McQuarrie is another guy I'd throw out there, a guy who makes good, big, loud, expensive action movies.
Right. Well, Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie, because the way that they
I am not giving Tom Cruise any credit for anything, other than being an absolute lunatic who probably like abuses his Sea Org slaves.
Do you know how Tom Cruise has been making movies since at least Edge of Tomorrow, probably earlier?
He goes to the studio and says, "Hey, I found this script, make it," and have Christopher McQuarrie direct it. He
like workshops and they shoot a bunch of shit, and then as they're editing it, if they need to add new scenes to it, they'll like drop entire storylines and repurpose it, so it's like the most interesting movie or the best paced movie that they can make it. So apparently it's a lot of like, hey, this isn't, you know how people always talk about like reshoots and like they're reshooting this movie. They used to be called Pickups.
So you're saying Cruise movies are mostly reshoots, in the sense that they're continually redeveloping ideas multiple times.
Yeah. Well, I would say that they're not quite reshoots, because you'd actually have to have a finished product before you'd have to have a finished shot script before you start the reshoots. But apparently it's like they try to develop the story very organically, and the movie very organically, which leads to why it can take so long to get it done. Apparently that's what happened in Top Gun Maverick as well. So it's a way he's been working, because Edge of Tomorrow was a lot of that. A lot of like Doug Liman not quite sure what he wanted to do or how he wanted to do it. And so they just kept...
Was that a Doug Liman thing or a Cruise thing?
I think it might have started as a Liman thing, but it might also be a Cruise thing, just because... Well, Edge of Tomorrow, that was his big comeback movie to me.
Yeah.
Like
that was also, I think, his first big introduction to Christopher McQuarrie as well, if I'm not mistaken. Because I believe McQuarrie was like a script doctor or something on that.
And he's been with Tom Cruise ever since. Like, I'm pretty sure
Cruise's boy ever since. Yeah.
All right, let's take a look here.
But like, while we're talking about, like, on the subject of blockbuster directors, right now, it's really Nolan, McQuarrie, and then you got Cameron's one movie, and then Spielberg, if he ever feels like making a blockbuster, his movies aren't very good anymore, but like, at least they still have
Fabelmans was great.
What'd you say?
Fabelmans was great.
It's not a blockbuster though.
No, it's not.
And it also does not look very good.
It's I love
in any event
the Fabelmans.
The point I'm trying to make is that, like, when he does make a blockbuster, even if it's just, shit like Ready Player One, it's still got like the Spielberg pizzazz that he's always had.
Well, there's also Michael Bay.
No, he doesn't make good movies, or even like
but he's a blockbuster director. No,
we're talking about good blockbuster directors. Like, who's the best? They have to be good in order to be in consideration for the best. So if they're bad,
I know, but like just to kind of like fill it out a little, because you have like, I feel like blockbuster is a very specific type, but then also it's very broad, because like Michael Bay has a very specific type of movie. Zack Snyder is like a.
But again, what did I say about the American blockbuster being an abyss of trash? You're listing all the trash now.
Zemeckis too, yeah. Well, and that's why I think like a good blockbuster director elevates it somehow with some aspect.
Well, I mean, it's like
usually with technique.
We're at a point in time where if you make a good blockbuster, you are now in the conversation of like great blockbuster director, because, like I said, blockbusters are so uniformly bad on average that if you make a good one, that's pretty special.
This is true. They're trying to put James Gunn in that category, but the Suicide Squad, as much as I love it, did not bring in any butts.
Well, a direct-to-video movie, it's hard to consider that a blockbuster.
Which one? The Suicide Squad?
The Suicide Squad.
That's true. Although the nice thing about it was, after I saw it in theaters, I could immediately go home and watch it on HBO Max. Yay. Anything else you want to talk about for Avatar: The Way of Water? I feel like there's something that we missed. I feel like there's a blind spot, but...
Yeah, I'm good. I think we covered everything I wanted to hit on.
All right. That's good enough for me. So if they want to, whatever... I guess I already said it earlier. If they want to reach out to us, video@underthewheels.com.
Mm-hmm.
Check us out on YouTube, Stitcher, Podcasts, Apple Podcasts.
Yep.
James Cameron, come on our show. We'd love to talk to you. Listen to you shit on us
or just have you talk shit about everything
about the Hollywood
for
apparatus.
Like 45 minutes. That would be pretty sweet.
Just give him a microphone and let him rant.
I feel like that would be pretty entertaining.
I feel like I know everyone said he's like mellowed out a lot. Also, famously, Sigourney Weaver's Grace Augustine is a James Cameron impression. So every time I see she comes out of the machine in the first movie, she goes, "Where's my goddamn cigarette?" I'm like, oh my God. I know exactly what kind of character James Cameron is. I can see it. I can see it. Mike, thanks for the music.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, Jim, thanks for coming back.
Yeah, we'll see you in 2 years, hopefully. Although knowing him, he's gonna be like, oh yes, I have all the. It'll be like the.
I have the next 6
Snyder
movies
Justice
already
League stuff.
filmed. He'll be saying that in 2030.
Quentin Tarantino will have retired and come out of retirement since then. 13 years. I haven't even known you 13 years.
No.
Well, anyway. On that note, I'm Matthew.
And I'm Gabe.
And you have just been Under the Wheels. Did you see Avatar with anyone?
I saw it with
Are
my
you
brother.
Seeing anyone? Oh, okay.
It was his
What
birthday.
did he think?
He liked it. He enjoyed it a lot.
It's his kind of movie, right?
I think so, yeah. I mean, he and I agreed on a lot of the same sort of defects, but he really enjoyed it. He had a lot of fun with it, so it was good.
Yeah. My wife, we didn't talk much about this, but my wife's big problem with it was how they got to the water tribe. She's like, why would they do that? But I think you did a good job of explaining why that is. And then my brother-in-law was just like, how did they, like, he was like, I didn't like the perspective jumps. There are too many perspective jumps. Like, randomly now we're following this character. Randomly we're following this character. And I was like, I didn't notice that. Maybe that's where I was like starting to pass out, but like I don't remember that happening.
I mean, I'm fine with
pretty well.
Perspective changes. It's part of storytelling, especially when there's more than one character.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he was saying like it was rougher than normal, and I was like, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to go back and see the movie in IMAX again since I have that AMC A list. And every time I'm like, Aaliyah, let's go back and see the movie. She's like, fuck no, god damn it, because she was getting a headache towards the end of the movie. She's like, damn 3D glasses, damn IMAX, never again. So
because here they are. That's all I remember from Nicole Kidman's thing.
So in the IMAX screening, they don't have that, and I was sad because
lucky you.
I'm the cult member I'm the Nicole Kidman cult member who's like, we come to this place for magic. We come to AMC theaters to laugh, to cry, because we need this.
No, she's got the in-betweener accent,
though.
It's like, we come here to laugh, to cry.
There's a whole article on it, and it's great. But here's what I think happened was, I think all of the scenes that were filmed, she had an American accent. Mm-hmm. And then when they went back to do the voiceover, she was just like, fuck it, I'm doing the Australian. So that's why it like jumps back and forth. Because when she's
her
like
natural
up the stairs,
speaking
like,
voice is kind of a tweener.
That's true. Because
she's played so many Americans.
Yeah,
it's got like kind of got the Gary Oldman issue.
God, I love that thing. It's so bad. It's so corny. Heartbreak feels good in a place like this. Oh my God. I fucking love it so much.
It's way less troubling than the Regal one, that's for sure.
Finished.